everyone. This is Alastair, and welcome back to the AI Cognitive Shift. This is a podcast where we explore how AI is impacting society and the way we work. Today, I'm joined by David Shim. He's CEO and co founder of Read AI, a company that provides an AI powered productivity and collaboration tool. And David and I talk about how AI is reshaping the rhythm of the work week, from Mondays that no longer start with dread to Fridays that no longer feel like checkout days. So let's dive in and meet David Shim from Read AI.
Great, Alistair. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, excited for you to be here. First of all, tell us about yourself and tell us what Read AI is.
Yeah, Seattle based. I've been here for the last 20 years. Before that, I was in San Francisco and really been around startup technology scene for a really long time, all the way from the early days of airfare price predictions to now AI, where ultimately all brought me together to Read AI. And what we're building is really the system of record for productivity. And the idea here is it's meeting notes, it's emails, it's messages, it's all the things and all the context and context that you have and bringing that all together to make you more productive.
And so who do you target? Who's your audience with the product?
We want to make this as mainstream as possible. If you believe that everyone should have an AI assistant, that everyone will be using AI 3, 4, 5 years down the road, you want to go after the mainstream. You want to go after the mass market. You don't want to go after a niche. And so what we said was like, let's open this up to anybody who wants to go in and create an account. So today we have millions of users across the globe. Over half of our users are in developing markets. The other half is in emerging developed markets. So we're seeing it across the board, across 20 different languages. And what's really been cool is like you could see how someone in Colombia uses AI versus someone in the US versus someone in Singapore. And it is actually kind of interesting how quickly the adoption has been for countries where you might not have thought they would be the first movers when it comes to AI. But because it's solving very specific problems, people are like, this is great. Why wouldn't I use this? Versus like, I think 5 years ago, people were like, ooh, AI is scary. Don't want to use it. Well, if you take the AI out of the conversation and say it's going to automate this, people start to get really excited about it. And we've seen that across the globe.
I just want to say that, yeah, 5 years ago, like last year, people were saying they don't want, earlier this year, and still to this day, people don't want to use AI. Do you encounter that a lot, of fear about using AI, and whether it's a productivity tool, whether it's robotic, whatever, in the enterprise, agentic tech, do you counter a lot of fear?
I think there was initially fear where they didn't understand it. And what's really helped out with AI has specifically been the big players in the space, OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, Google, going out and actually saying like, let me introduce you to AI. We're going to spend hundreds of millions, if not billions, in marketing to make it accessible to everybody. So now people understand the value proposition and they're more open to experimenting against it. So when we first started Read, we were doing meeting notes. People started to go and say, hey, you're joining a call, you're doing the recording notification, because we were pretty clear about we're on the call to measure it. And people are like, that's never going to catch on. Now you run into the issue of there's too many meeting note takers on a call. People are like, whatever, like this is fine. And I think that shift has happened over the last couple of years. And the reason why people are okay with it is like, it's taking away jobs, which people are scared of, but it's taking away jobs right now that nobody cares about. So if you were in a meeting, there was always someone that was responsible for taking notes. But if I said, Alistair, you're the person that's going to take notes in this meeting, you'd be like, what am I, the junior person on this call? Like, what are you talking about? And so for us, it really became like, we're taking a problem that nobody wants to solve on their own and we're automating it. And so that level of automation has really kicked in.
And you have a prediction. You said it earlier that the widespread adoption of AI, you think it's just going to continue. More people are going to adopt AI, use AI agents. What's your worldview?
I think as people solve very specific problems, you're going to find the agents coming through more and more, but it's going to be specific problems. Like I think a great example would be like maps. Initially, there were a lot of mapping solutions that came out with the desktop and it said like, hey, MapQuest, get a map, put in the directions, print it out. Now you don't need a big giant map. You could just go in and say point A to point B. I'm going to print it out, get directions. Then when you got to the mobile device, the maps didn't go and say like, hey, I'm going to create this open world where you can do anything with maps. It was like, pick point A, pick point B. I will give you directions. And then I will start to layer in additional features like traffic, weather, delays, construction. And so you need to go in and solve a specific problem. And that's where we really started with meeting notes with Read AI. But then the question came up like, hey, why did we even set up this meeting originally? Did that follow-up actually get delivered? And so when you start to these questions, you want to bring in your emails, your messages, your files, and connecting those dots there has been where we've seen a lot of that traction where We're not going in and saying we're done at one, but we're saying we solved one very clear problem. What's the next one? What's the next one? And then you're able to actually build a stack. And I think that approach is going to win. I think the approaches that aren't going to win is open world solutions where it's like, hey, you can do chat and you can create whatever you want to. Now, if you're doing search and you're looking for something and you want a question answer, great. But if you're trying to solve like workflows, if you're trying to say like, I want to do less work in a given day, that is harder to do in an open world environment. You rather want to go in and say, hey, here's an agent that can do exactly this. I need to connect this and I'm done.
Mhm.
That's where we're going towards. And I think that's where the mainstream adoption is going to kick in.
Yeah, amazing. Interesting comparison to maps because I mentioned the other day, I dropped a reference to my son about Thomas guides. He had no idea what that was. And so I wonder if his children will understand, will be astounded to hear, oh, people actually wrote down notes, or what will be the Thomas guide of the future of 15, 20 years from now is
I don't think it's going to be 10 to 15 years that we're going to see it. It's going to be 5 to 10 in the worst case scenario of how quickly this adopts. Because I think the level of compression that we're seeing has not been, I've been in the space for a while, you've been in the space for a while. Like I have not seen a rate of adoption like this ever. Even when it came to smartphones with apps, that was pretty fast. This has been ridiculously fast where OpenAI came out in 2023 to the public. We're at 2025 and it has almost 1 billion MAUs now. It's got billions in revenue. You've got a bunch of other companies that have built on top of that in similar stacks. Like that hasn't occurred in any lifetime. It is much more like the Industrial Revolution, but faster at this point. The scale, the actual impact that it's having. Like the best example I have is my parents speaking Korean. They're in their 70s now. That's their native tongue. Sometimes they want us to communicate with me with a little bit more emotion, a little bit more thought, and they know I can't read Korean. They're using these AI apps to actually translate, to have conversations with me, send me images. Like these are really things where they're actually bonding closer to me, where a 70-year-old is now going in and actually sending me these messages that I'm like, oh, I totally understand what's going on. And I can reply back and they just go in and translate it so they have a better understanding of what I said. Like those are things where it's almost future. We talk about it now. It's like, this is normal now. You can just hit a translate
Mhm.
button. 10 years ago, like, oh, this is like Star Trek stuff right now that we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, in comparison, you're right. So let's dive in and talk about the workplace and agentic workflow. What are you seeing in the workplace? How Read AI kind of is involved with that? How are you seeing AI impact people at work?
Yeah, I think immediately from a meeting notes perspective, we've been at this for about 3 years now, 4
Mhm,
years. We're the fastest growing meeting note taker ever. We are very much clearly seeing people adopting it and making it the de facto standard versus going in and saying like, maybe I'll take notes, maybe I won't use AI. It's more like, why are you not using AI? It doesn't make sense that you wouldn't use it because why would you go in and use your memory where you're going to forget it because you got 5 meetings in a row? What we've seen is higher retention, that kind of tribal knowledge that comes in from a meeting where you and I have a conversation. Maybe there's 6 other people. It's up to everyone to just handle the follow ups. That's what the old way
mhm,
was like, hey, you kind of own this, Alistair. David, you own this. And hopefully we follow up at some point and we get that thing done. But more likely, what used to happen was like, hey, let's set up a meeting to follow up on that meeting. Did we get those deliverables done? And that's because people weren't tracking it, people weren't measuring it, people weren't actioning against it. And so I think we're seeing that today. And the clearest thing is like we just came out with a study where 70% of people that were interviewed that completed the study said, hey, I want AI to actually do more tasks for me. So
mhm,
meeting notes was a start, but I want more things that it can take off of my plate because it's actually taking me away from that tedious work, that soul sucking work that nobody wants to do when you wake up in the morning. It's like, oh, I got to send out these 5 emails. I got to follow up on this. I got to check in on status. Those are things that people don't want. People rather would want like almost like a TikTok. They want content delivered to them. They want decisions or recommendations delivered to them. And then they get to go in and orchestrate. So I think this, people have probably heard this a little bit, but you're going to start to see more and more orchestration layer come up where the AI is coming to you and saying like, I think you should do this. And this is the reason why. Do you agree? Yes or no? And then you make a decision. You might swipe right to say, hey, let's move that deal from 50% to 75% in HubSpot, Salesforce, and it'll give you all the reasons. But this is where multiplayer comes in. I think there's orchestration, but then once you get these things going, you start to bring in other people. And as you bring in more people, AI right now has been really like single player, where it's like, how do I write this email better? How do I automate this process? The multiplayer approach is going to get really interesting from the sense of people are going to start to get information that you didn't even think about. Where if you think about social, the best example I have is like social networks. You have your friends and the algorithm goes in and says, your friends are interested in these things.
Mhm.
I'm going to start to drop certain nuggets of content to you and say, hey, are you interested? And the longer you linger on it, the more you like it, the more you comment on it, the more content I'm going to serve. That same process is going to happen with work where, hey, I'm really interested in this project status whenever it comes up because I nod my head in a meeting. When my boss emails me, this person is very important, so I'll reply very quickly. All of those are really signals, and those signals will start to build this feed for you.
Amazing. So more than just a productivity tool, and like you said, multi-user, we're seeing it deploy without being prompt is kind of what you're saying. That yeah,
100%.
yeah.
I think the prompts are going to get old at a certain point or
Mm,
scale where it will still exist. But if you think about where the way that, Facebook, when's the last time you were on Instagram, Facebook, or any social network and you search for something? You wait for the content to get served to you
mhm.
and you expect the algorithm will tune to what you're interested in. And so I think that is where we're going to go ultimately in the next year or two, where content and creation happens more on a push basis versus a pull basis.
And with again focused on the workplace, are you seeing more adoption multimodal with voice and video? Is that something that you're working on?
Yeah. So right now we bring in content from the major video conferencing
Hmm.
platforms. So we use a multimodal approach. We're bringing in emails from Gmail, Outlook. We're bringing in Slack, Teams messages. We're bringing in Asana, Jira, Confluence, HubSpot, Salesforce. And we're actually, once you bring all that together, we launched a product a couple months ago called Sales Copilot. And what it's doing is saying, take all that data that we have access to. We know historically how deals have changed based on someone saying, I would like an IO. Hey, can you give me a quote? Hey, I'm going to pass on this opportunity, but can you check in on me in a quarter? When we have those signals, we can see how those deals have progressed across time. Now, what we're able to do is actually predict what's going to happen next. So we've had over $100 million in deals where the AI has actually originated and progressed those deals moving forward, where someone didn't have to create that. And it's updated on a much quicker basis where it's 24 hours or less versus like it used to be, hey, every Friday, all the salespeople have to be told to go update their opportunities in Salesforce or you're not going to get your commission. So it's those kind of problems that it's solving where it's streamlining that process in a workplace environment, or it's things like scheduling. We're starting to see people come in and say like, hey, how do I optimize my scheduling? How do I streamline this process? When you and I schedule a meeting, we might go back and forth a couple of times to figure out the right time. Doesn't it make more sense for our AI agents to get CC'd and just go in and say, let's figure out the best time for both of us? This is a thing that's really starting to come up in a lot of conversations. Like, can it proactively answer questions on my behalf? And so it's a really hard problem to go and say, what data can you expose externally? What things can you answer? But at a certain point, if you or I are out of office for a week or two, we want to disconnect. We want to enjoy time with our family and friends. I don't want to call it like someone's like, hey, David, can you open up your laptop and find this? It's like, I'm on the beach. I don't want to do that. Imagine if you can actually query your AI and it can go in and say like, hey, why did we sign this deal at this rate? Or, hey, what did that customer say that they wanted on the next feature release and when did they require it by? Those are very simple questions that the AI can take over. And I think you're going to start to see a movement there in the next, I'd say before even the end of the year, where you're going to see these AI assistants take on the initial question and more in a global way versus going, it's like, it's only a sales use case. It's only a customer service use case. I think those are correct to start with, but I think it's a bigger opportunity to go and say, what are all the questions that come to me? How can AI actually pre-draft that answer for me even before I need to write it?
But before we move on to the impact of all this, I wanted to ask about, in listening to you talk, we're focused on, it sounds like the desk worker or more so the white collar worker. Do you see it equally impacting, the hourly employee, the warehouse worker, the general workforce? Do you see AI, coming in strong and impacting that very large community of people?
100%.
Mm,
So
sure.
two quick examples would be one, we're talking with a company in Southeast Asia where they go out in the field and they sell insurance. And in the insurance, they go to different villages, they go by foot, they go by car, and they walk around and say, hey, do you need this insurance plan? This is what we offer. And they usually take these notes. They've moved to recording on their phones. Now we're going in and talking with them about getting it set up to actually, hey, take your phone out. You can record the conversation with consent from the other person. So you get all the details. Hey, I've got kids. I've got this crop coming in next year, and I want to make sure this is insured and getting all those things in place. they could actually go in, and once they record it with read, it takes all that data and it's done. It's summarized. Here are the action items. They could push one button and push it to their CRM system. So now it's tracked. So by the time they get into the office, they've already got 20 contracts ready to go that they can send out to their clients
Hmm.
with a single push of a button. So that is what we're seeing from a foot perspective. When you go out into market we've got a number of states that use Read AI. They're healthcare workers, they're social workers. So they'll go out in the field. And the problem with social workers today is they're strapped for time. They have so many patients, clients that they work with. And you go for each one to each one. And then they used to record the conversations, same kind of scenario. And then they would go back to the office, they would load it to a transcriber, they would write the notes down, they would upload them. Now the AI is actually going and doing all that for them. So they can actually look at the progression of, hey, we've got a patient or a client that used to ask a lot of questions 6 months ago, but I'm actually, every time I see them, I think they're asking fewer questions and I think something might be off here. They could actually look at that from a notes perspective because it's all organized and say, hey, what's the trend? They can go in and ask the question, hey, is Kevin asking less questions than he was 6 months ago? Is this something that is trending to something I should look at? It could actually give that feedback and go in and say, oh, this is great. Now I can follow up and I can actually go in and action against that versus just reading about taking notes and filing reports. So
Hmm.
I think you're seeing that shift. And I think the on the ground folks are the ones that are going to benefit the most, honestly, from a day-to-day perspective, because you're going to solve real solutions.
And to me, it's an incredible shift to see that level of people adopting it. Recently, you did a study on the impact of AI on the work week, that Mondays and Fridays are becoming different than they used to be. And I would imagine that, the pandemic and remote work had a lot to do with that. So there are some factors there. But what did your study find? Tell us about
Yeah, couple high level things where
it.
people dread Mondays less when they use AI.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, why is that? It tells you, hey, on Friday, here's the things that you had open. And
Hmm.
now on Monday, it's going to go in and say, hey, here are the things that you should follow up on. Here's the priority. We're seeing that as one of the highest open rate emails that we send out to folks or the messages that we push out. Like the interaction rates are off the charts. But it goes in and says, like, Mondays, you're kind of like, I have to cold start where I've reset to my kind of social life, my friends and family. I've relaxed. Now the problem is like, I have to catch up on everything again that I just kind of checked away for a while. With the AI going in and saying, like, hey, David or Alastair, heads up. These are the things that are on top of your list. Now you don't have to dread, like, what am I missing? What am I forgetting? Did I follow up on that or not? You get that update. That dread, part of that dread is like not knowing what you forgot in a lot of cases. Like I used to have this, whereas like, what am I forgetting? Like I was supposed to do something today and like, I don't know what I was supposed to be. So from a numbers or quantitative perspective, like 70% of employees want AI to do more tasks for them. We're seeing that, people feel like they have more time when they use AI by a ratio of 5 to 1. So there's a group where it's like, hey, I don't want to use AI. So for every one person that says AI makes it harder for me to do my day-to-day job, 5 people are going in and saying like, this makes my day-to-day job easier to do, more simple, more relaxed and better mood, all those things that come into play. And I think those were kind of the 2 kind of core takeaways for us was just kind of like we talked about it earlier, the level of adoption and people being open to it, especially when it's super easy to try. I think that's the other difference is like in the old days of SaaS, in the old days of enterprise software, you would have to go in and say, I want to try this out. It's going to take a couple of weeks to get the contract done. It's going to take months to actually get the implementation done. And then we need to do an education and rollout, and not just for Read AI, but for almost every AI solution that's out there. You can go up and running in minutes and you don't even need a credit card a lot of times. And you can see what's the value of this? What's the actual output? What's the ROI that I get? And I think that's really been kind of interesting for us to see like, hey, you create a Read AI account. In an hour, you have a meeting. In that meeting, we take the notes for you. Like, okay, I totally understand the value of this now. And then you go and say, maybe I'll connect my Gmail. Oh, it actually checked the box that I finished that action item. So I don't have to remember if I got that done because automatic completed that. And then if I connect my files and then my Slack, now I've got updates that come in on a Monday basis, on a Friday basis to say, hey, how'd the week go? How'd it end? What are the important topics for me?
So again, on Mondays, what did you say that people fear Mondays less? How did you phrase it?
Dread Mondays
Dread
less.
less. And what about Fridays?
Fridays are actually pretty good because you can go in and see like, hey, what's left. So we send an email out on Thursdays. And this is just for everybody else as well on the study too. It's like people understand that they are they understand early on what they haven't done yet. So by Thursday, you're not the
Mhm.
Friday dread of like, it's 3 o'clock, I got 80 different action items. It's the ability to actually, the AI is going in and saying like, hey, even before that Friday, here are the things that should be most important to you that you need to get done versus you scrambling at the very end. So from a satisfaction perspective, like we are seeing that people feel that less of that dread at the end of the day when it's the end of the day, end of the week, or start of the week.
I'm wondering how this impacts the managers. Does it make their job easier when all their employees are on AI?
I think it makes it easier for managers in a couple different ways. So
How's
one is when you're interacting on a hybrid basis where everyone's in different spots, it is actually pretty difficult. Like if you ask managers, like, what's the most difficult thing? It's like, I don't know how productive my team is. I don't know how to help the team. I don't know what the status is until they tell me. So now you can go in and say like, by default, if I have a meeting with a customer, if I have a meeting with the product team, if I have an internal touch base with project management, those updates are automatically distributed across my entire org, across my team, et cetera, on an opt-in basis. So now I actually don't have to send a status report. Like imagine like no more status reports because the AI already has that content and is sending it on your behalf the minute that it's completed, that conversation, that task, that email. And so by taking that kind of
Mhm.
cognitive step out of the mix, it's streamlining things incredibly quickly. It's almost like going back to that map example. It's going in and saying, Google tells you about a minute before where you need to make a turn, make a right turn here, upcoming. That little thing
Mhm.
makes you not stress and go and say, I got to keep looking at the map. I got to keep looking at the map. It's proactively going and giving you the heads up that this is getting done. I think you're seeing that for the workspace, for the workplace, where that multiplayer mode, people want to share that data. Because honestly, there isn't that much that's scary. So if you think about the work that you do on a day-to-day basis, you want all your files accessible. You want your emails, you want your messages within reason. You want your conversations because all that's around work. You're 9 to 5, you're working. And if you've got an assistant that is sticking around you, that's following you, and you tell that assistant, hey, I want you to follow up on all these things, to take care of this, to make sure I don't drop anything on my task list. Why wouldn't you take that on?
Mm.
And I think people are starting to realize that more and more. And it has been really interesting to people say, oh, I actually don't have to do this. Doesn't have to be the thing where I have to have 10 meetings in a row today to understand the status of a project as a manager.
Now, what's the biggest misconception that you find people have about AI in the workplace, productivity apps and the like?
They're not going to take away your jobs.
Yeah.
I think that is very clear right now but I will say there's a little caveat to that. So AI will not take away your jobs. I have not seen organizations where they've fired people because of AI. Now they might say like, hey, we're seeing efficiencies through AI. And so what is going to be interesting, and I believe in the next year, is you're going to see more scenarios where if someone leaves the company, where a group gets disbanded, et cetera, they're not going to fill the gap with employees. The original default
Mhm.
has been if someone leaves, I fill that role. That's been the standard for as long as I've been around the technology space. I think what you're going to see with AI is to go in and say, okay, if someone leaves the role, they can find a better job, they find a different organization, you're going to go in and see organizations say, do we need to fill it or not? Or can
Right.
AI actually fill the gap there? And I think the best example is there's a publicly traded company. It's one of the fastest growing over the last 3 or 4 years. They actually have the same headcount that they do today when they went IPO. So they actually haven't moved headcount. And the reason why is partially they've gone in and said, for each person that leaves, it is no longer default that we replace it. It's going in and saying, hey, what do we do to actually fill that gap? Do we need someone or can technology help that? Can they
Mhm.
go in and types of tooling? And it's really kind of changed the way people think about it because they're the CEO's kind of explanation was, if someone leaves a company that's important, generally the company does not fall apart when you're large enough. What happens is the team fills the gap, they use technology, and then eventually they fill that role. Well, can technology keep that going? Because you've kept that role open for 6 months, you haven't fired the right person, but the company still moved forward. And for them, they actually grew faster than they ever have every single year. So I think that is going to be a shift where it's not going to take away your job, but it's going to slow down the backfills that you normally see by default.
And then just wrap it up. Obviously, you have a lot of enthusiasm for the company, the job that you're doing. What excites you about the next phase for AI in the workplace?
I think for AI in the workplace, it's the storage of intelligence that is the next level. So the
Mhm.
storage of intelligence is the idea that the processes, the knowledge, the interactions that every single person has, that's content, that's context. So if you think about the tokens, those are all things that tokens can consume. And if you have that storage of intelligence across time, that becomes your moat. where that becomes what differentiates. It's no longer going to be your brand. It's like, I've got this brand in market, or I've got this secret sauce process for manufacturing. It's going to be the knowledge of all the employees, all the interactions that you've had. And applying that to the future of work is, I think, where you're going to see a lot of value. And I think you're going to start to see that with publicly traded companies where they talk about, hey, this is our storage of intelligence. This is how we access it. And once people have that intelligence in place, the solutions that it can be built on top of that start to get really interesting to go in and say, hey, I've got 50 years of drug discovery and process. If AI can actually go in and look at all those processes, find the inefficiencies, imagine the drugs that could go out faster, that could actually help people, that could solve diseases, that could cure diseases in certain cases. And that gets really exciting to me, where it's like, versus like, hey, if someone leaves the company, that project might get slowed by 6 months or a year because they had all that tribal knowledge in their head. They knew the institutional knowledge. That's gone. And so, like, that level of momentum, that level of productivity, I think is this new age of productivity that's going to be driven by AI. So I think data, storage of intelligence is huge. And I think it's the workflow. I really think from a next year or less, you're going to start to see more interactions with AI where you don't know it's AI.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the magic button, is going to be like, when you interact with something and at the very end it goes in and says, hey, and just as heads up, I'm AI, I'm glad to help you. You're like, oh, this is really interesting. Like, and I think that suspension of disbelief is going to be huge. And I think it's going to happen more and more.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that now too, for sure. Well, we covered a lot of things here, David. Really packed in a lot of different discussions on, how we got here and what's happening with AI and where we're going. David Shim from Read AI, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Alastair. This is great. It's a lot of fun conversations.
That was David Shim of Read AI. And if you'd like to learn more, you can check out their recent study on how AI tools are transforming the work week. If you like this episode, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the AI Cognitive Shift, which you can find on YouTube. And be sure to follow AiNews.com for more AI-related news. If you got guest suggestions or ideas on where AI is changing work and communications, drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. That's it for now. Thanks for listening.